You're listening to Mentoring Developers. Question is, what is this team spirit that we're trying to get to? Because eventually we will have differences. We will have people with different backgrounds, and just different people. A lot of companies, they try to create this team spirit by doing team retreats, or we're just going to go and do this fun thing today once a month or once a quarter or once a year, and then that's how we bond. Do you think that kind of stuff works?
Yeah, I have a mixed opinion. Maybe Edward, you can go first.
Well, thanks, David. Well, I mean, I may have the same mixed opinion, so hopefully I'm not going to steal your thunder, David. But it's like,
it's okay.
is that I think the team retreats, the good part of it is it allows people to see the basic humanity in the people that they're working with, right? It's that somebody's not like a developer, it's Arslan or it's David. It's not, that just happens to be what you do as a profession. That's not who you are as a human being,
Mm-hmm.
So I think those team retreats, I think, could be very good, in that way. I think sometimes, though, and maybe all three of us have experienced this, is you get this weird kind of manufactured consent, where it's like everybody's going to go out and have a team retreat, and you are going to be, you're forced to have a good time,
Yeah, exactly. There is no other option.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like that type of stuff can feel really inorganic and awkward. But then also too, as I would say, maybe the last little point to make is that it's also, you have to be cognizant of the way you're spending people's time. Where it's like, and different companies have different policies on this. Like, I almost think nobody minds a team retreat that happens during work hours, right? Because that's like, oh, that's wonderful, I'm being paid. But if it's simply like a social hour that people are forced to go to, like after work, that I think you can get into this precarious kind of slope where it just feels as if you're just being forced, to work off the clock to do something that might feel a little bit BS-y to some people.
Right.
But yeah, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, one thing, I also experienced this where the CEO will say okay, let's go after hour, have a drink or whatever, and someone from the team says I have a life, so after 5 I want to go home and I don't know, want to clean the house, do some errands, whatever, and the CEO will look at that person as if they are worse than everybody else. Oh, because you don't want to bond with us, you're not part of the team, and what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those things it's very bad in my opinion.
Well, I agree. And I think that's what those types of things I think are ultimately very optional, right? Because it's for instance, it's I drink, but I have colleagues that don't, So it's for me to kind of just assume hey, let's go out for a beer, and maybe this person is a recovering alcoholic or, something like that. It's you don't want to basically say this is a pre-qualification of you being as you mentioned, David, being a member of the team or being amicable or nice, because maybe that's just not that person's thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to the point where it's the optional events of hey, let's go out and, grab dinner or something, that can be nice sometimes. But I think everybody, it's maybe an art to it, but it's there's a sense of people kind of know when they're being coerced into doing something, or if they're truly getting a chance to meet another human being and have a conversation. I think almost nobody minds meeting somebody and having a conversation. But if it all of a sudden takes under the umbrella, of some forced work thing, then I think you often have to handle those situations differently.
Right, and I think one good option is what I think, when there's companies that work 100% remotely, where one person is here, the other person is there, and nobody meet each other, and they will go into a retreat to meet. So everybody can have a chance to meet each other, right, for a month or two. In some exotic place. I think that's the better option, because you still go there to work, right? But then you're together with the team in a nice place, and so you know what you're getting into. You're still getting paid, you're still having to work, but you work in a different environment, and now you have your colleagues and friends close together, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
So yeah. I think that maybe that's also a good option, even a better option, to actually go somewhere and work, but in a different place.
Yeah. Well, and I also think another thing, which is, kind of playing off that is if you have something, say, for instance, and Arslan and I have talked about this previously, but lunch buddy programs and such, where it's effectively kind of during work hours where, say, for instance, you get a chance to, have lunch with maybe a senior colleague or maybe somebody who's in another department, or maybe, coworker, that type of stuff is something where I think it could be really good for company culture, because again, you get that chance of you're sharing a meal together. It's relaxed. You're not having to code, together right now. But it's just the idea you get to spend time with that person, but it's effectively kind of within those kind of work hours, even though maybe you're monopolizing a little bit of somebody's lunch, for instance. But those things I think can sometimes work out well too.
Okay, interesting.
I think that this idea of doing things during work hours, that's the key, because not only that it means that you don't have to give up any of your own private life, but also you don't have to work. That's incredible. So instead of working 40 hours, this day you're working, 36 hours. And this week, you're working fewer hours. So it makes you happy, because if you have to do fewer hours of work, that means the company is not all about just getting the most work out of you. Then I think that it creates this sort of an enabling environment where you feel like, wow, I'm getting paid to have fun. And so, they're appreciating me. And now you're in a situation, you're bowling, you're laser tagging, whatever you're doing. It's like, cool, I'm getting paid to do it. The other point that you guys made was really valid, because some people don't drink, some people don't eat this food, some people don't do that. So if you make it so that everybody can feel comfortable, right, then it's not a bar, for example. If you go to a bar, then some people won't be able to go. If you do it after hours, then some people won't be able to go. And then now it creates this, and if I've seen this happen, where, from 6 to 8, we're going to be at this bar. Okay. Well, then 4 or 5 of the closest people to the CEO and now there's private click. Now there are special people. Now, now you can talk about other things. Now you have an unequal relationship between different employees, because some people can go to a bar with you and some people can't. So I think this all happens because our CEOs and our managers and our people who are running the company that are a little immature. Sometimes they don't have families, and
I will argue sometimes they're just lonely and want friends. Let's be honest.
That is sad. Well, I have seen this, right? I've seen this happen over and over, but I always found that because they're so invested in their company now, they own the company. Most of the time, they're the majority shareholders, right? So they own the company, but the employees don't own the company. So unless you're giving them some ownership, and obviously in some companies, in the Silicon Valley, it's pretty common to get stock options, so you get some sense of ownership, but that's not the general trend. Generally, you're just an employee, and you're not going to care about this 24/7, and you shouldn't have to. And so I think that's something that people need to understand. Thank you so much for listening.
For show notes and transcripts, visit us at mentoringdevelopers.com.
From the management point of view.